For over a decade, Richard Rawlings ruled American car culture the way few people ever rule anything, completely and loudly. Gas Monkey Garage became Fast and Loud. Fast and Loud became a brand worth tens of millions of dollars, and that brand became something people recognized in countries that had never heard of Dallas. And then it started coming apart, not all at once but in pieces, each one more public than the last. Lawsuits, a Ford Mustang controversy that went to federal court, a partner who walked out mid-season, staff he would later admit he regrets hiring. What we're laying out today is the full timeline, and the part that nobody covering this story has actually been willing to say directly. Rawlings opened Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas, Texas in 2004, and for years the operation ran on a single premise: find neglected classics cheap, restore them fast, and sell at a profit before anyone else figured out what they were worth. Most people in the automotive industry couldn't execute that at his speed, and the gap between knowing the idea and having the discipline to run it is what separated the garage from everything around it. Discovery Channel came calling in 2012, and Fast and Loud went from a pitch to one of cable television's most watched reality television programs faster than almost anyone predicted. 16 seasons followed, along with spin-offs including Misfit Garage and Garage Rehab, and the Gas Monkey brand stretched far beyond car restoration into energy drinks, merchandise, apparel, and licensed restaurants, with a peak net worth that analysts placed around $18 million. Rawlings wasn't a TV personality who happened to own a garage. He was a brand architect who used television as his primary distribution channel, and for a while, it worked better than anyone had a right to expect. The first real fracture had nothing to do with a lawyer or a courtroom, and that's what made it harder to absorb. Aaron Kaufman had been at Gas Monkey Garage from the beginning, the quiet and technically precise counterweight to Rawlings' salesmanship, and audiences understood that dynamic even when they couldn't name it. Midway through season 13 in 2017, Kaufman announced he was leaving, and his reasoning was clear. The television grind had hollowed out his love of actually building cars, and he needed work that felt honest again. No accusations, no public fight, just a craftsman who had reached his limit. None of that made it easier for the show to replace what it had lost, and what nobody expected was how quickly the ratings reflected that absence. By 2020, Discovery Channel let Fast and Loud close after 16 seasons, and an era that had defined cable automotive content ended without much ceremony. Here's where the story becomes the most searched chapter attached to Rawlings' name, and also where the public record gets the most distorted. A buyer filed a civil fraud case against Gas Monkey Garage in Texas federal court, alleging that a restored 1968 Ford Mustang Fastback they purchased failed to match its advertised specifications, particularly around engine output and the authenticity of certain parts. A civil dispute between a buyer and a seller over whether a car was represented honestly. That is what the Mustang case actually was. But here's the thing, in the years since, fabricated content buried that reality under claims that Rawlings received a 5-year prison sentence, then a 15-year sentence, then a dramatic courtroom collapse that never took place. None of those claims appear in any verified court document because none of them happened. The case moved through the federal system as a civil matter and resolved without criminal charges, without prison time, and without any of the finality those videos promised. The Mustang lawsuit was real. The sentencing narrative was invented wholesale, and that specific distinction is the part no one covering this story wanted to lead with, because accuracy generates fewer clicks than fabrication does. We have been tracking the Gas Monkey story for months, and subscribing is the only way to catch the next chapter when it lands, because what surfaced in the 2025 legal record reframes everything that came before it. The most documented legal battle in Rawlings' recent history began in 2018, when Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, the Dallas restaurant and entertainment venue that had licensed his brand name, filed a $6 million civil lawsuit against him. Managing member Daniel Flaherty alleged that Rawlings made false statements about the restaurant's finances, specifically that he told people the partners were mismanaging money, and that those statements derailed a third-party buyout the venue had arranged. Rawlings countered with his own claims, arguing the restaurant had continued operating under his trademark after the licensing agreement expired, pointing to instances where the Gas Monkey name was attached to Jameson whiskey promotions without his authorization. 3 years of public legal dispute followed, draining both sides in attention, legal fees, and brand credibility at a time when neither could afford it. August 2021 brought the resolution. Both parties settled. All claims were dismissed. The venue rebranded itself as Amplified Live, and a public statement cut every remaining connection to Rawlings and the Gas Monkey name. The legal chapter closed, but some of Gas Monkey's licensing momentum had already stalled. Partners watching the dispute from the outside pulled back, and rebuilding that pipeline took considerably longer than settling the case did. Where Rawlings actually landed is a different story than the one most people clicking those fabricated headlines expected to find. Wheels and Deals launched in 2021, keeping him in front of an audience that wanted his next chapter without the fast and loud format attached to it. Gas Monkey Ice House opened north of Dallas in May 2025, built around 28 beers on tap and regular pop-up car culture events that pulled immediate crowds. The Monkey Trap podcast found its own audience, covering cars, culture, and his personal life with the unfiltered tone that made him famous to begin with, and the Gas Monkey Garage YouTube channel crossed 600 videos with weekly releases that kept the automotive community engaged on their own schedule. Net worth estimates in early 2026 placed him between $25 and $30 million. Not the portrait of someone who lost everything, but the portrait of someone who lost a television show, survived a brutal legal fight over his own brand name, watched his most recognized creative partner walk out mid-season, and rebuilt using formats that didn't require a network's permission to keep running. Rawlings built something real, starting from a Dallas garage in 2004 with a business model most people in the automotive industry would have called reckless. The show ended. The partners left. The lawyers arrived. And the internet decided twice a week to announce prison sentences that never existed. Through all of it, Gas Monkey Garage stayed open, the brand kept producing, and the audience, smaller than its cable peak but more direct than television ever allowed, stayed with it. Whether the Ice House grows into something lasting, whether the new content connects the way Fast and Loud did at its height, whether Rawlings can push the brand back to where it stood in 2015, none of that is answered yet. But 20 years of buying and selling cars has shown him one thing better than almost anyone else working in this space. When everyone else has written something off, that's usually when the real value is sitting right there waiting. If you watch this far, you already know something that most people scrolling past the clickbait thumbnails never bothered to find out. That the real story of Richard Rawlings and Gas Monkey Garage is more complicated, more interesting, and ultimately more honest than anything a fabricated prison sentence headline could deliver. And that's exactly the kind of story this channel exists to tell. Most automotive content right now falls into one of two camps. Either it's pure celebration, polished and uncritical, or it's manufactured collapse, designed to make you feel like you witnessed a downfall that never actually happened. Neither one gives you anything worth keeping. What we do here is different. We read the court filings, we track the timelines. We find the gap between what the algorithm rewards and what the record actually shows, and we close it. The Gas Monkey story is not finished. Rawlings opened the Ice House in 2025, the YouTube channel keeps building, and the legal era that defined the last several years of his career has consequences that are still working their way through his brand relationships and licensing structure. The next chapter of this story is already in motion, and the people who subscribe before this video ends are the ones who will be there when we cover it. Hitting subscribe takes 2 seconds, and what it gets you is a front row seat to the kind of automotive and celebrity business reporting that most channels in this space won't touch because the research is harder than reading a press release. We cover the contracts, the departures, the pivots, and the recoveries, not because drama performs well, which it does, but because these are real businesses built by real people making decisions under real pressure, and that is genuinely worth understanding. If the Gas Monkey Deep Dive connected with you, there are 2 videos sitting on this channel right now that cover similar territory. The business collapse and comeback arc that almost no one in the media documented accurately, and the brand licensing story that quietly reshaped an entire corner of the automotive world. Both of them reward the same kind of attention you just gave this one. Leave a comment below with the part of this story that surprised you most. Whether it was the Mustang case reality versus the clickbait version, the timeline of the bar and grill settlement, or where Rawlings' net worth actually landed in 2026, drop it in the comments because those responses directly shape what we cover next. This channel builds its research calendar around what the audience is actually asking, and your comment is part of that process. The like button also matters more than most people realize. It tells the algorithm that someone sat through the full video and found it worth their time, which is the signal that gets this kind of reporting in front of people who are still looking for it instead of settling for the fabricated version. Subscribe, watch the next one, and come back when the next chapter of this story breaks, because it will.